What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripe Show. We're going to be doing our GM episode today. Scott and I, we each teamed up with our guys. I teamed up with Logan. Scott teamed up with Ilya to fix the Yankees. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Wanted to spend a couple minutes at the top, though, Scott. Talking about.
I need a little bit more hype than that, man. This is a big episode. This is my favorite episode of the season. Not that the rest of them aren't fun, but this one is the way that we're able to put our mastermind hat on and just fix everything in the way that we see deemed fit is exciting, man. It's like, this is fantasy baseball, but with our team. This is real life stuff. This is actually a job interview. Yeah, it's a job interview. Because that they listen to the nonsense, and basically we're telling them that they're dumb, and this is how you do it.
When did we start doing this? Was it we haven't been doing it the entire time we've been doing the podcast, which has been since 2015.
We've done it at least 3 times.
Oh my God, more than that. I was going to say we started it in 2018.
Okay, so 4 or 5 times, something along those lines. But in the past, we've always done it, and this is like the disclaimer that we've thrown out a couple times now, just introducing this episode as we're teasing it. But in the past, we've definitely looked at our GM plans through the lens of Brian Cashman, right? Through the lens of what we believe, not necessarily what we believe he will do, but what he should do within the precedent that has been set, essentially. So
it's kind
we've always gone within the guidelines of what we believe the Yankees are capable of, essentially. And this year, while maybe that's true for one and both of ours, because we've been brainwashed for however many years. But this year we kind of took the ropes off a little bit and said, do it the way that you believe needs to be done, whether that's within the realistic scope of the New York Yankees, like not to get crazy unrealistic, but within the realistic scope of the Yankees, or, just if Brian Cashman is no longer there and you had free reign.
Because this offseason required the most work to fix the team. In previous years, there's an argument to be made for all of the years since we've been doing it since 2018. A couple tweaks here or there, a player or two, and the team is championship caliber or puts the team over the top. That's not the case anymore. Logan and I were looking up and down and we're like, half of the roster needs to be fixed. Like that's and the only reason the other half doesn't need to be fixed is because it can't be fixed. It's not realistic to get rid of Giancarlo Stanton, as much as we all probably want to not have to pay Giancarlo Stanton $22 million next year. It's not realistic to get to offload.
You don't know that until you listen to ours. You don't know that.
Okay, well, I'm sure I'll shit on that because that isn't realistic. And so while you're right, we're taking the approach of what would I do, not what we think Brian Cashman would do if we incepted his brain. Logan and I still tried to be grounded in reality with our stuff.
As did
because literally, if I was the general manager of the Yankees, I'm not just going to be like, call up a team and be like, hey, take Giancarlo Stanton. Oh, you want to take his money plus the fact that he can't play? Thank you very much.
As a precursor, I will say that we spent a lot of time, we made some trades, and we spent a lot of time stress testing those trades, looking at it from the other side, like making sure that there was viability on both sides.
Sure.
Hearing you guys just, completely shit on it, and how we could justify what is being done. It was good exercises in the way that we went through everything, because we tried to ground it as much in reality as possible. But yeah.
Well, do you want to get right into the plans, or do you want to spend 2 minutes talking about the Stanton agent stuff?
Yeah, just let's do 2 minutes at the top.
So there was an article on ESPN yesterday that Stanton's agent responded to Cashman's comments. Cashman's comments were last week. We obviously covered them, but he basically called out Stanton for not being durable. So Cashman said he's going to wind up getting hurt again, more likely than not, because it seems to be a part of his game, is what Brian Cashman said in the powwow at the GM meetings last week. And we did talk about that. And that's not something that Cashman has said in the past, even though it's obviously been apparent, and I'm sure he's been thinking it. And his agent, Giancarlo's agent, where is his name in this? I am not seeing it. Who's his agent? Wolf? That's his agent, right?
Yeah.
Wolf?
Yeah.
He said, I read the context of the entire interview. I think it's a good reminder for all free agents considering signing in New York, both foreign and domestic, that to play for that team, you've got to be made of Teflon, both mentally and physically, because you can never let your guard down, even in the offseason. And it's very interesting that Wolf, who represents Stanton, also represents Yamamoto, who's the top Japanese free agent. Obviously, Yankees have been linked to him, and that's why he made sure to put in the foreign or domestic.
So the funny thing is that neither one of those guys are wrong. They're both extremely accurate. And the thing is that Brian Cashman, in his verbal diarrhea that happened last week, is probably a little too pointed in the way that he said it. That wouldn't warrant a response. So Stanton's not the type of guy that's not going to respond to something. He's the type of guy that will sit on his hands and just deal with things and be the good company man. But I think when something is directed at him personally and as direct as Brian Cashman, as pointed as Brian Cashman made his statements, he's gonna fire back a little bit. We saw that little bit of fire in him. Actually, it wasn't a little bit; it was a lot of it of fire in him when he was leaving the Marlins. He was very outspoken, way more outspoken than he's been the entire time with the New York Yankees, and way more in a position of pushing back than we've seen him in New York at all. He's taken his lumps. He's been in, but last year, obviously being as bad as he was, and Brian Cashman, the funniest part about it is that he said it's part of his game, which
exactly
like the wording of that is ridiculous.
It's as if it's like strikeouts are a part of his game. No, injuries are a part of his game.
Right. Strikeouts and injuries and home runs are part of his game. That's a ridiculous statement. It's an absolutely ridiculous statement about a player on your team. One that you have, under contract for 5 more years. So it's, it doesn't surprise me that he fired back. And if the Yankees,
I think it's 4 more years, believe it or not, I think it's only 4 more years.
The Yankees, see, my expectations are 5. So 4. Oh, that's great. He's going to leave sooner.
Hey, it's 4 years. It's going to feel like 14. So don't worry about it.
Yeah. But this may, if they are indeed actually, going to be engaging with a Yamamoto negotiation, then might have just added a couple million onto the top of this one, and also a little bit more of sweet talk that needs to happen.
Do you think it's a consideration for free agents? Do you think players, both who are getting traded to New York, who might have to waive no trade clauses to get to New York, because we've seen players not want to come to New York for one reason or the other, or free agents signing? Do you think that's
100%?
Comments?
It's a consideration. Oh, his comments, or like the fact that those comments were true?
No, not his comments specifically, but what he pointed out, that you have to be made of Teflon, that you're going to be criticized, that fans are going to get on you.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not making that a consideration, then you're probably going to get eaten alive, unless you just already are like that. Because if you're expecting something different, that's when I think it affects the guys the most. Or like, it's not that big of a deal. Come on, it's just the media, it's just the fans. Like, I've dealt with this before. There's a different level of intensity. There's a different wave of volume that comes at you too, I think, when you're here. And yeah, so if they're not considering it, then that's a flag to me, unless you really are just like a guy that doesn't give a fuck.
Well, it's like, if you're thinking about it, it's almost like, well, then you don't belong in New York anyway.
Well, no, I think it's a thought. Like, even for the toughest, like, you acknowledge that it's there. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that it's a thing. I mean,
no, what I mean is if it's a big factor in making your decision, right? If you've got 2 offers on the table, and you're like, well, I would rather be Yankees, less criticized, or I could go to the Rangers and be less criticized. What should I do? Well, I always wanted to be a Yankee because the pinstripes. Well, but at that point, you're like, well, you're not going to handle New York at that point. If it's really that much of a factor for you, then you probably don't belong in New York anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a major consideration, but it's a consideration. It's part of the melting pot of considerations that you're putting into your mind as you're looking around and identifying what team you're going to be signing with.
And Stanton has handled everything great. He's taken
off the field, yes.
He's stood at his locker and
But are we done with that? Are we done with, like, I'm kind of...
That's what I'm thinking. That's where I was going with this. Is I think this is Stanton talking through his agent. I don't think
100%
Stanton's agent is just feeling this way. Like, clearly Stanton has expressed this to his agent, probably after Brian Cashman's comments last week, and then Wolf is expressing those.
Well, I don't know if you saw on social too.
I don't go on social media anymore.
Okay, well, our guy Keith McPherson, who was over here for a minute and has been on WFAN, had a little exchange on Twitter with Cam Maben, and Cam Maben has alluded to the fact that maybe there is a desire to play somewhere else. Maybe there is desire for Stanton to look somewhere else and be more appreciated somewhere else.
It's impossible. He can't get on the field. No team at this point is going to take him anymore. Maybe you would have had a team take him a year or two ago, but at this point, a team would be utterly more stupid to take Stanton. Even if the Yankees are going to pay half of his contract, which the Marlins are already paying $10 million of. So even if a team was paying Stanton $10 million, what's the point? He's going to play 42 games and hit 187. What's the point?
Okay, let's get into our GM plans here before
get fired up.
Get too
all right,
pissed off about we're fixing things. This is where the Band-Aids come into play. Maybe not Band-Aids.
No, not Band-Aids. This is full-blown surgery. Logan and I were going through this, and up and down the roster, just so much needed to be fixed. As Cashman said in his powwow, need 2 outfielders, right? But that's not where it ends. Needed outfield, obviously. We think we need to address infield. We need to address pitching depth. There's so much that needs to be addressed. The lineup was one of the worst in baseball last year. How do you get this offense to be a top 10 offense in the league, which is where it's going to need to be if the Yankees are going to actually make a serious run in the postseason? So that's just sort of some precursor to our plan.
And just so we can lay out for the people listening, the way that we're going to do this is you're going to go through your GM plan. I'm going to sit here and bite my tongue and not talk. And then I'm going to give our GM plan, and then we can discuss.
So first thing, let's get these out of the way. We are non-tendering Lou Trevino, Kyle Higashioka, Jake Bauers, and Albert Abreu. Those guys are all going to be making, money in arbitration that frankly is just not worth it, especially because you're going to see we're adding some payroll here. So anywhere we can save, we tried to do. Trevino coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's just not needed at $4.1 million in the bullpen. We wanted to give Austin Wells a shot at the backup catcher, and with Higgy there, that's just not realistic. And as much as Higgy has been a really good backup catcher over the years for the Yankees, I think his value is just not there, unfortunately, even though the money's not a lot. So wish Higgy the best wherever he goes. Jake Bauers, frankly, I just don't want Aaron Boone to put him in the lineup anymore. So I'm going to take that out of his control. So he can't put Jake Bauers in the lineup because he's not on the roster. And then Albert Abreu, he's never going to reach whatever potential anyone thought he was going to have. So even though it's only $900,000, see ya, Albert. All right, our first big move, and this is the cornerstone of the offseason. This is where we are starting. The decision, as I'm sure you guys went through as well, do we go the Shohei Ohtani route or do we go the Juan Soto route? Ultimately, we decided to pursue Juan Soto for a couple of reasons. As much as I think Shohei Ohtani is the best player in baseball, two-way player, I think you do have to take into account how does Ohtani fit on this roster. And even though I have said, don't let that stop you from signing the best player, with Juan Soto also seemingly available from all reports that the Padres are basically going to be forced to move him because they're not going to sign him to a long-term contract that he's going to get $500 million or whatever. Between Soto and Ohtani, who fits into the Yankees better to have them win a championship in the next, call it 3 years? Because I do think that is the window with Judge and Cole still in their primes is the next 3 years. We think Juan Soto, because he can play the outfield, slot him into left field, or if you're not comfortable with his defense in left field, move Aaron Judge to left field. He can do it, and put Juan Soto in right field. Juan Soto is obviously in the last year of arbitration going to be making $27 million in arbitration. Don't extend him immediately. Even though the idea would be to extend him to a long-term contract and we're going to be trading prospects for him, If you only get 1 year out of him and it's a MVP caliber season, is that the worst thing in the world? We think not. So the trade package we're offering up to San Diego, and we use the Baseball Trade Values website. Surprisingly, Soto's value only 22 on Baseball Trade Values because I guess he's entering last year of arbitration. We still overpaid by that metrics because we still think he's going to warrant a pretty decent package. Everson Pereira, Chase Hampton, and Oswald Peraza going to the Padres for Juan Soto. This is the Yankees' number 3, who is Pereira, number 4, Hampton, prospects in their system, and then Peraza, who is not on the Yankees pipeline ranked anymore. He's not going to be a centerpiece in any trade at this point, but certainly still has value. So that's the package we're sending for Juan Soto, and see how the year plays out. I honestly don't think he would agree to an extension a year early anyway, seeing as how he's turned down
Boris guy too.
$440 million from the Nationals a couple years ago. He's going to hit free agency, so pay him his $27 million this year, and depending on how the year goes, negotiate with him in the offseason. Next move we are making is we're trading for Corbin Burnes from the Milwaukee Brewers. Another decision we were deciding between is, do we pursue Burnes or do we go after someone like Montgomery, Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Yamamoto, or some of the other pitching on the free agent market? It's a stacked pitcher market on the free agent market this year. All of those guys that I just mentioned in free agency are going to cost $20 million plus AAV. So you can get Corbin Burnes at $14.1 million because he's entering the last year of his arbitration. The Brewers seemingly are going to be entering rebuild mode. They just lost their manager, who apparently is the best thing since Joe Torre. And the thing I love about Corbin Burnes is he is durable. He has made 32 and 33 starts each of the last 2 seasons. He's been one of the best pitchers in the National League for 5 years at this point. And I do think there is big rotation concerns behind Garrett Cole, specifically injury-wise, with Rodon, Nestor Cortez coming back from injury, Michael King, complete question mark going into next year. I love Michael King, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a sure thing that Michael King is going to make 30 starts. So adding Burnes to the rotation gives you 2 guys at the top in Cole and Burnes that are going to go out there and make 30 plus starts. And I think that that's value in and of itself. The package going to Milwaukee, notice how I didn't mention Clark Schmidt in that rotation I just was talking about. Clark Schmidt is going to Milwaukee because we think they're going to be looking for a young, controllable starting pitcher in return. Not saying Clark Schmidt is, replacing Corbin Burnes. He's a number 4 or 5 in the rotation. I think we saw he could be pretty decent at that towards the end of the year. He went through ups and downs this year. Surprisingly, a good amount of value on Baseball Trade Values. We're also trading Drew Thorpe and Trey Sweeney. Drew Thorpe is the Yankees' number 5 prospect, and Trey Sweeney is the Yankees' number 9 prospect, going to Corbin Burnes. Almost dead on value for him, 32 in exchange for 32.1. So with Clark Schmidt gone, that's another $3 million off the books. But as you can see, we just added $41 million in Burnes and Soto. The next move. So we were, even with Soto added to this lineup, I still don't think that equals, call it top half of the league offense. You still need more bats. You need more consistency in the lineup, specifically left-handed offense. We're signing Cody Bellinger, and this one we were going back and forth on. For a little while, we were like, well, we could just get Kevin Kiermaier to be a stopgap replacement to whenever Jason Dominguez returns for center field. But Kevin Kiermaier is just a defensive plug. He is not an offensive player. And we had that last year with Harrison Bader. Almost drew a blank on his name. Harrison Bader was a defensive center fielder. And we weren't really pleased with that. The outfield was in shambles last year. You cannot go into next season with basically just one outfielder or even just 2 outfielders. You can't go into a season with no plan in center field. So Cody Bellinger fits in nicely into center field. And the thing I love about this Cody Bellinger signing is he gives you not only a center fielder, but he gives you insurance for if Rizzo, for whatever reason, isn't right, because he could play first base. And he also can slot into your infield next year because Rizzo's contract is up. if Jason Dominguez is really ready to be the everyday center fielder going forward. You can put Dominguez in center field, and Cody Bellinger can move to first base, and he can also play outfield on a backup in a backup role. So we're giving him 6 years and $150 million. That's $25 million AAV. The contract projections for him, based on where you look, baseball trade rumors or MLB trade rumors or Fangraphs or some other sites, range between 5 and 7 years at about 25 million AAV. So we sort of just split the difference. If you're telling me it's going to require 7 years at 25 million AAV, okay, fine. He's going to be 28 years old next year. Is the season last year he had in Chicago sustainable? I think so, especially putting him in, surrounding him with would be Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, and the rest of the Yankees lineup at Yankee Stadium, short porch. I do think that would be sustainable, at least for the next few years. And now you're talking about a really, really strong top 5 in the lineup. The next thing that we're doing is we're getting some insurance in the infield. So you would think the infield is crowded. I mean, even Brian Cashman said, I have a surplus of infielders. But I'm not comfortable. We are not comfortable going into next year with Rizzo and DJ LeMahieu at the corners. I think that is too risky. Could they both have great seasons, everyday roles at those positions? Yes. But I wouldn't bet on it. Rizzo coming off the concussion is very scary. If you told me Rizzo is going to be the player he was in the first 2 months of the year going forward next year, awesome. But if you told me he's going to have some struggles next year, I would also believe that, which again is why Cody Bellinger is nice. But we're going to sign Heimer Candelario, who's another guy we wanted to trade for at the last trade deadline, for a 3-year, $36 million deal, $12 million AAV. This gives you really good depth at third base because DJ will still get a lot of reps at third base. He'll get some reps at first base and obviously second base as well. He's a switch hitter with above average defense, Candelario is. So this gives you much needed insurance, I think, in the infield, and also a switch hitter in the lineup, which is nice. And then we don't have anyone to back up shortstop, so we're going to sign Elvis Andrus, who was 90th percentile for outs above average last year, who can play shortstop, second base, even third base, for whenever Volpe needs a day off. Elvis Andrus, 1 year, $1 million deal. He's 36 years old at this point. So he's kind of like, what was the guy's name? Hechavarria, right? That they signed,
Hechavarria.
They trade for. Just a defensive infielder. That's all Andrus is. And then the last move we're going to make is bring back our guy Wandy Peralta to a 2-year, $10 million deal, $5 million AAV, just having that consistent left-handed reliever in the bullpen. We know he can close. We know he can set up. He's done the fireman role. So just really nice bullpen piece to have. That means we're adding $72.4 million to the total payroll, bringing the payroll for next year to $317.45 million when you factor in Aaron Hicks's $9.2 million of retained salary, benefits, and minor league salaries. It's a shitload of money. We did not see a way to fix this team without spending a crap load of money, and I'm sure you guys did the same.
What was the final number you got to?
317.45.
We're at 317,751.
Okay, so there's no other way to fix this team other than spending money, and it's like it's impossible.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny because I think we have talked about this team at such length and how it's broken, that it makes sense that we went similar avenues in how to fix this. So we have some differences in personnel, I think, here, and the way that they fit, but it's actually pretty close to what we did.
I was thinking it was going to be close. As we were going through some of these moves, I'm like, this seems like a move they would make. This seems like a move they were going to like. So anything specifically you want to talk about our plan, or you want to do yours and then we can go back and forth?
Let me do ours first, and then we'll talk about it, because there are a few differences that we can talk through as far as personnel. But yeah, let's go from there. Okay. Very first thing that we're doing. I don't know if you've seen the news, a couple of different things. Andrew Bailey, who was rumored to have, he's the pitching coach in San Francisco. I think he played for the Yankees for a minute, right? A cup of coffee at the end of the year or at the end of his career. Looks like he's going to take the pitching coach job for the Red Sox now. And then also David Ross, also rumored with this for the Yankees bench coach, said that he doesn't want to be in the dugout for a bench coach. He wants to be for a manager. All that said, we weren't considering either one of those guys. What we are doing is bringing in a leader of men from the bullpen. Mike Harkey is being promoted to bench coach in the dugout. Everybody loves him. Literally everybody who's come across Mike Harkey loves him. There's not a bad word you can find on the internet about this man. And he was literally the gatekeeper to the greatest closer that has ever played the game, has seen winning baseball, was with the Yankees in 2009 when they won the World Series. He's just a guy that is a calming presence and a massive human being, and one that I want in the dugout on a daily basis. He knows the bullpen inside and out. And to me, Aaron Boone needs a guy that knows the bullpen inside and out, not just a pitching coach who can go out there and read a spreadsheet, but a guy that actually uses his feeling and can lead men and have the respect of these guys. So that's the first thing. We're putting assistant pitching coach Desi Duchel out into the bullpen, and he starts his new career as the bullpen
Okay, so
coach.
you guys went to the coaching staff.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing.
You know what? Okay. Mike Harkey deserves it. And again, like, I love the man, so I want him in. If Aaron Boone's going to be here, I need someone I can goddamn trust in that dugout. We are releasing non-tendering players. These names might sound familiar: Lou Trevino, Kyle Higashioka, Jake Bowers, Albert Abreu, and also Nick Ramirez. So we have another guy in there, but agree with Higgy. It's just time. It's kind of like the Romanites at this point. Austin Romine was here for a long time until he wasn't, because there was someone behind him. We're going to be going a little bit of a different route in the catching situation. I think Trevino is the stability back there. He's the guy that can, that has the trust. But we're going to give Austin Wells the opportunity to win that starting job. I don't think him as the backup catcher is the best scenario. I think if the hitting, didn't happen at the end of last year, it seems like the defense, from what they were talking about, was better than expected based on how he was going with some guys. So I think he does have the opportunity coming out of camp to win that job. We're going to give him every opportunity, and in our world, he wins the job, and is going to be the catcher for next year. Okay, so first big move, and let me preface this. Agree on a lot of the points that you said. This team is broken. This team needs to change their ways in how they approach the game. They need to be much more balanced on the offensive side. And when you look at the philosophy of, we have all of these guys on offense, but then when people go down, we're essentially getting swingmen and journeymen to play in place of players that we're depending and paying. That's a problem, because one, it's happening more often than not. And two, these guys aren't good. They're not good. They're great if they're, coming up for a short amount of time from AAA and you can plug someone in. Like if Jake Bowers is that guy that comes up for a week here and there because you need to from AAA, cool. Like that's where
not 200 at bats,
not 200 at bats. So that means that, one, you need more flexibility, you need more depth, and you need to damn well find out, get guys on this team that will play in sync with each other, in unison with each other, meaning complementary skill sets, and have the ability to flex guys around, because that's what this lineup is. You need flexibility. When you have Giancarlo Stanton in the DH spot, and Aaron Judge in the right field spot, you need some flexibility to move guys around. And we're basically playing this like Giancarlo Stanton is on this team. We did not trade him. I was joking earlier. We did not trade him because you can't trade that contract unless you're giving everything up. Unless Cashman pulls a magic hat, a bunny out of his magic hat. I don't see it happening. And you'd have to have a really dumb trade partner. Call the Anaheim Angels, see what happens. But other than that, I don't know how you're doing that. That's it.
They lose Ohtani and trade away Trout and bring in Stanton.
You need to make this team without Giancarlo Stanton in consideration. What does this team look like without Giancarlo Stanton in consideration? And I think that's kind of how we approach it as well. Like if he's there, if he is going to be there, and if he's not playing well, you need to have the ability to bench him if that's the case. You need to be able to put someone else in that DH spot, or at least rotate people into that DH spot, and have the depth quality depth so that you can play an everyday lineup that is able to compete. So that was part of what we did. The Shohei Ohtani Juan Soto route, we looked at the same exact thing. We went the same path. We went Juan Soto. I think it's more realistic. I think Ohtani is, there's a lot more rumors that he's going to potentially go after a short-term deal, which means he's then a hitter. And you're looking at who is the hitter I would rather on a short-term deal that has the potential that fits the best into this team. And I think it's Juan Soto. We have a void in left field. Juan Soto can go out there, play left field. If his defense is not the greatest in the world, I don't give a shit. I don't. I want him, and I want to fix this offense.
Home runs.
Primarily, we're fixing the offense, and we'll play some defense, but we're going to fix the offense. So the deal that we sent, and ironically enough, it's pretty similar. We made it a little bit more complicated. We're sending Clark Schmidt, Everson Pereira, Oswaldo Peraza, and Chase Hampton over for Juan Soto and Tom Cosgrove. Tom Cosgrove is a lefty reliever that is a controllable lefty reliever. He had a really good year. 2023 was his rookie year. 54 games, 51 innings pitched, 1.75 ERA, 44 strikeouts, gave up only 3 home runs, 2.34 ERA plus. He doesn't get a lot of strikeouts, but he's like a master at weak contact. 100th percentile in hard hit percentage, 95th in barrel percentage, 100th in exit velocity, and 99th in xERA. He fits the team well. He's a lefty, Staten Island kid. He's probably got some Polaroids of him, wearing a Yankees hat as a kid, which is great. We love that. And comes in.
He grew up a Mets fan.
That's fine. He'll trade over, but he's a guy that is, fits the bullpen nicely. It's a Cashman move in the sense that he's controlled, and does bring another piece in this deal that makes you feel better, because if Juan Soto is not extended, we're not extending him either, not immediately. We're playing this out. We're going to see what happens, and we're going to go, because honestly, if he is looking for $500 million or $450 million over that period of time, I don't love doing that personally. I think that's a insanely long deal. Too many things can go wrong, and we've seen so many bad things that have happened within those long contracts when your name is not Aaron Judge, and they have Aaron Judge. So we'll see if they're able to get him, then great. But we're going to go in with him in a walk year and try to win the World Series and see what happens there. Okay. So the next move that we are doing, so we've addressed left field, and I'm going to bounce around. So we're making some trades, but we're also adding some free agents. I'm going to stay in the outfield. You went a route with signing a guy who is in the name of Cody Bellinger to another long-term big contract. Cody Bellinger was too risky for my blood. He's just too risky. I couldn't stomach the contract. I couldn't stomach. There are reports out there that he's looking for way more than even what you said. I've seen reports that he's looking for 10 years and trying to capitalize that. Whether he gets it or not, it's just something that 8 to 10, I'm not willing to do that with a guy like that. He did have this one bounce back. Hold your tongue. He did have a bounce back. And that's great. He certainly, improved his value tremendously. But I'm worried about him as an injury. Still, if there's one injury, we see what an injury does to him and how long it took him to come back from an injury. And I'm just not here for that. I'm just not. And so we went a different route. We're actually going into the international waters, and we're going to sign Yun-Hoo Lee for $65 million at 5 years. The rumor is there's 50 for 5. We've seen highest of 75 for 5. Split the middle, went to 65 for 5. That's a $13 million AAV. He's 25 years old. He's a lefty. Coming in is just, you look at the scouts and what they say about him. Ji-Ho Lee is a sports writer for the Yonhap News, told MLB this. He doesn't really have a lot of weaknesses as a hitter. They say he's a bad ball hitter too. You can find some clips on Twitter going around where he does these Vladimir Guerrero Sr. impressions, like the ball bounces in front of the plate and somehow he makes contact and hits it for a double. This guy makes contact everywhere. He is a plus defender. He plays center field, and he averages 43 strikeouts a season. He doesn't strike out. In 2023, Luis Arraez struck out 34 times. I understand there's better competition here, but this guy has premier bat to ball skills and can play defense. in center field and man that center field well enough so that, when Dominguez comes back, he's not in a rush. We have a guy out there that's going to be doing that. And he fits this lineup really well, adds more contact, adds another lefty bat. So we're going that route. And plus it's a long-term deal. He's a young guy that can stay with this team for a long time. And I love the makeup of the player. Okay. So the next thing we're going to be doing, again, sticking in the offensive side, because I'm going to address that before we get to the rest of it. We're making another trade. We're going back to St. Louis, and we're making a trade for Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan, 4 years of control. He's a pre-arb guy. Again, you'll see the consistency. I like this. If you listen to the show, you know damn well that I'm a big on-base percentage, low K percentage guy. And he has similar production to what Glaber is giving you. But we're not getting rid of Glaber. Glaber is staying. We looked at trying to trade Glaber and what that value was going to be coming back. And honestly, the value in our eyes was just here with the 1 year playing with with a purpose, not extending him, but playing out his contract. And Donovan is there for now insurance and also potential injuries. Donovan not only plays second base, he plays third base, but he also plays left and right field. Average defender, I think he was in 2022, he was above average, but he's a guy that will give you good at bats. He's a high on base percentage. He go pull percentage, center percentage, and oppo percentage 29, 48, 21. He sprays the ball. He gives you the ability to go all over the place, and he can play, and you can slot him in pretty much anywhere in the lineup. So the deal that we're going to go for him, because he is controlled, I think they talked to St. Louis last year or at the trade deadline, and there were talks of Marinaccio and some of the younger pitchers that were coming up. I think Beater was one that was actually rumored that they were interested in. We're giving up Drew Thorpe, Ian Hamilton, and Johnny Brito. They're looking for controllable guys. They're looking for starting pitching with Johnny Brito. Ian Hamilton, actually, and again, we use Baseball Trade Value website the same way. Ian Hamilton has a ton of value in here as well because of the year that he had. I think we can replace him. If the Yankees have not proved that one thing out, then they have proved nothing out. They can build relief pitchers. And I think there's a ton of guys in the minor leagues, even within the system, that can actually fill in and take on another role. But Cosgrove also helps that because we're going to be getting him into the bullpen. Okay. So outfield in my opinion is fixed. The lineup is in a much better place right now, a much better place. You have flexibility within, you have a ton of lefty righty balance now. And you're able to, use super utility guys all over the place. And Boone now has a ton of flexibility with where he can slot guys. And frankly, he can't make that many bad decisions within the lineup. And that was part of this. We needed to make sure that he is not able to make terrible decisions, that the personnel is there so that he can actually, do something that is positive. All right. So pitching, we need to address the pitching because you're right. Pitching, while we thought we addressed it in Carlos Rodon, obviously that was not the case. You went trading for Corbin Burns. We went back to the free agent market and we did sign Yamamoto. The Yamamoto deal was for 215, 7 years at 215. Rumors like he's at 200. We went a little bit over just to give a little bit in there. That's a $30 million AAV, 25 years old. The guy's controlled. We all know the deal with him. He's the best pitcher that's come out of Japan since Ohtani, and the Yankees, we know, will go out there and sign a deal. Cashman was there when he threw a no-hitter. They've been scouting him for a while. They obviously very much like him. And pretty much his agent just said, you need to put another $10 million on the top of this deal for him to come to New York. So thank you for the timing of that, Brian Cashman. I appreciate it. Now we're going to go over the luxury tax threshold so that you have to pay for those comments. And that's fine with me because it's not my money. That was, so yeah, that's and we are going to Wandy Peralta also. A lot of similarities there. Love Wandy Peralta. He's everybody's favorite uncle, as Ilya was saying last night. He's only 32 years old. He looks like he's 45. But we got him we did pay him a little bit more because we saw some of the market price that was, I wanted to give him 5, but I think market's going to dictate 6. We had 2 years, 12 million with a third year player option. in there for Wandy Peralta. He's been so solid. He's been the guy that you can truly depend on for in the bullpen, and we wanted him back. We love the makeup of it. So the bullpen now: Holmes, Loizaga, Efros, Canely, Luis Gil. We have slotted into the bullpen as well because he started throwing rehabs at the end of last year. They wanted him to go into the offseason as normal as possible. I don't think they stay with him in the starting rotation, but he's definitely got the plus stuff where he could be really effective in the bullpen. I like him coming out in that bullpen spot. And honestly, with Abreu, like you said, like he just walked too many damn guys. He does not belong in the bullpen. You can't trust him. You can't bring him in. I don't care what his stuff is. Luis Gil now gives you the upside of a guy like Abreu, and hopefully you're able to get a little bit more consistency out of him. And then Cosgrove is in there as well. Starting pitching: Cole, Yamamoto, Rodon, Cortez, and King. Lineup with Wells at catcher, Rizzo at first, Gleyber Torres at second and starting, DJ at third, Volpe at short, left field Soto. And now Donovan being the infielder that you can swing in, because we know you don't need to be a starting player on the New York Yankees to get a ton of time and a ton of at-bats. He's going to get a ton of at-bats, and he's going to play at second. He's going to play at third. He's going to play some left. He's going to play some right. He's got the ability to do all of that, and I love the makeup of the player. And then you also have Cabrera, who can go in there and do similar things. We did keep Esteban Florial coming out of spring training, basically as the defender in the outfield. He can play all three positions at a high level. Most likely, he's just playing a backup spot there. He can pinch run. He can do those things. Fast guy off the bench. I like him that he's not going to obviously light the world on fire with his offense, but he doesn't need to be at that point. He's in a very niche role that I think will fit him. And when Dominguez comes back, if Florial's not on this team anymore, I don't think anybody's going to cry about that. So, and Trevino as the true backup catcher. And Marinaccio was the other guy that we had in the bullpen. Sorry, that was on the next page I missed.
Cool. Yeah, a lot of similarities. Who's gonna be a backup shortstop though? Oswaldo Cabrera? That's not
Oswaldo Cabrera is gonna be the backup shortstop.
Yeah. That's why we signed Andrus, because when Volpe gets days off, or if you need someone to go in, in the middle of a game. I mean, not that that's a huge, problem for your plan. It's just
I can't dedicate a guy just for that in my estimation here, because one, we have a guy that literally just won a Gold Glove, who's a rookie, who's coming off. He's going to be out there a lot. We're not taking him out of games. Yeah. The only reason that I would have that have a defensive replacement or have someone who's going to play out there is if there's an injury to happen. If that's the case, you can go out and get an Elvis Andrus with no issue from anywhere. Not a problem. So I'm not building that into my team to start off. I think to me, it's kind of a waste of a roster spot. And having more flexible guys is a better look.
So you said that, well, first of all, we both went the Soto route.
Yeah.
And I think it's clear in doing this exercise, Soto just fits what the Yankees need so much better than what Ohtani does. As much as, again, I would love to see Ohtani signed, because Giancarlo Stanton is there clogging up the DH spot for whenever he's on the field and healthy, quote unquote. It's just, you can't sign Shohei Ohtani. And it's like, I criticize the Yankees for potentially using that excuse going into the offseason, and here we are using that excuse. But assuming they trade for Soto,
there's a caveat there.
That's okay.
There's a caveat there, because Soto and Ohtani, if you believe what the rumors are and what he's saying, if it is a shorter term deal, you're looking at him as an offensive player right now, right? Like, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at Soto as a shorter term deal offensive player. So now you're getting, arguably similar production from both players. One does fit the lineup or fits the team a little bit better in the short term. If you are extending, you can't go wrong with extending either one or getting either one of those guys for the long term. And I don't think the Yankees can afford to miss out on another outfielder in the caliber of Soto. And then, yes, it's risky because you're not going to sign him. You're giving up guys. But you know what? If you're listening to this show and you're still holding out hope for this Yankees minor league system, you are missing the point. You are missing the point. You need to leverage as many of these guys as you can to get quality players right now. The Yankees system actually is chock full of mid-tier right-handed arms, chock full of them. They have a ton. And if you're looking at improving the starting rotation by with free agency, which they have, Cole, Rodon, in your case, Burns, via trade, or Yamamoto, to me, it's a similar fit. You have long-term fixtures in there at the high level. And then you have a guy like Michael King, who's controlled, and a guy like Nestor Cortes, who's controlled. You can't, you're looking, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to come up. So if you're saying, well, this guy's he won minor league pitcher of the year. I don't give a shit.
Cares?
It doesn't matter to me who did. What's his name? Chance Adams won minor league pitcher of the year as well, right? Was punching above his weight in the minor leagues the entire time. What did he do in the major leagues? Nothing. So I just can't look at that and say that this guy's going to be, a particular thing in the majors. I can't do that.
I think also fans get blinded by, well, we can't give up our number 3 prospect. He's number 3 in the Yankee system, but he's not even ranked in the top 100, or he's ranked number 87 in the top 100. Like, that is just another prospect. That's all that is. That's just another prospect.
Agreed.
Unless you've got one of these guys that is in the top 25 ranked, some projected to be an all-star, something like that, they're very expendable. And you're going to have another wave of them coming through from rookie ball and A ball in the next year to year and a half.
So one pushback on yours a little bit, and we're getting into like value, I think, at this point, just in the way that I would push back in getting Corbin Burnes. You have Clark Schmidt in that deal. I do believe that Clark Schmidt, or one of Clark Schmidt, or another starting pitcher that's major league ready right now is going to be needed to get that deal done. I do think that, and that's the belief that we went into. So we pulled back some trades by trying to leave Clark Schmidt out, but at the end of the day, you said we believe that this is going to have to happen, one of these guys, and we're not trying to give up Michael King. We would much prefer give up Schmidt, but I think value across is similar.
Here's why I disagree with, or we landed on that package. There's so much pitching on the free agent market. Only teams that are in contention are going to be trading for Corbin Burnes because he's entering the last year of his deal. And teams that are in contention are going to be willing to pay all of those pitchers I mentioned, $20 to $25 million AAV. So I don't think there's going to be a ton of trade demand for Corbin Burnes. I think the Yankees could swoop in because all these other guys have been signed, so teams aren't desperate for pitching. You could swoop in to a team like the Brewers who need to rebuild, and if it takes another prospect, okay, fine. But the reason I like Burnes, like I said, is the durability. A little bit lower AAV for this year. And then when you look at the money coming off the books next year, in 2025, under our plan, the Yankees would have only $177 million committed because Juan Soto would be up for free agency. Rizzo's money is coming off the books. Gleyber Torres is hitting free agency. Corbin Burnes would be hitting free agency. Now, obviously, assuming those guys have good years, you'd want to sign Soto or Burnes for long-term deals, but you would have the flexibility in the payroll to do that.
Yeah, I get that. And that was the other reason why, Hal came out and said, I don't know why he used this number, but he did say 300 was not a hard line. He said that from his mouth.
And if you're spending 300, spend 317 or
Exactly.
318 because there's no difference.
There's no difference.
And if it means your team is going to be that much better from getting someone like in your plan, Yamamoto, or in our plan, Cody Bellinger, so one other thing I want to touch on. I
want to talk about Gleyber too after you make this point.
We both made it a point to get left-handed offense into this lineup.
Yes.
Because it's so obvious that's what this team, one of the major things this team is lacking. In me and Logan's plan, when you look up and down the lineup now, you've got Rizzo, who's still there, lefty, Candelario, who's going to be a switch hitter, Soto, left-handed hitter, Bellinger, left-handed hitter. That is you're adding 2 power lefty bats to the middle of the lineup. Candelario is going to hit in the bottom third of the lineup, who's a switch hitter, and hopefully Rizzo rebounds and can be in the middle of the order too, as a left-handed hitter. But holy crap, does this lineup look so much better with that balance in there? Ready lefty, basically 1 through 9.
Yeah, and Candelario is a guy that we looked at. We ended up not. I don't love his on. He strikes out, and his on base percentage wasn't where I want it to be. And I value on base percentage a lot. I value contact, and so that's why we didn't sign him. We didn't even put in a third baseman because the fact that Donovan can play third base, second base. You now have Gleyber, DJ, Donovan, with the ability to flex around. And then you have, Cabrera obviously as a super utility guy that can go in multiple areas as well. So the lineup that we had, and I go back and forth a little bit with who's batting leadoff, but for this conversation, we got DJ leading off, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, Glaber, Volpe, Austin Wells, Yun-Hoo Lee. And if you want to mix up, you could split up the righty lefties a little bit more, and you could put Wells, where Glaber is, or you could put Lee up there too. Lee hits a lot of ground balls, so I could also see him in the leadoff spot as a guy that would just work the count, and get on base a ton. And DJ, the more I look at it, actually would probably do that, because DJ I want in a run producing situation a little bit more often. And he doesn't, Lee doesn't clog up the base path. But yeah, man, like the balance is so important, but also the complementary skill set. That was the other reason why Bellinger wasn't it for me. He's just too close to a year that he struck out an insane amount of times. And I know that if he tweaks anything, like I feel like we're getting back to that guy. He's got such a long swing that I don't want to sit here. And I'm afraid that if they sign Cody Bellinger, we're going to be looking in 3 years like, oh my God, I can't believe Cody Bellinger. We're staring at him for this amount of time.
But at least he's 28 years old. He's going to be 28 in the middle of next season.
I get it. I do.
At least you're signing someone for his prime years. Does he have risks? Absolutely. But I think Lee from Korea has risks too. That is as many scouting reports as we want to look at, and people from Korea that say this guy can't miss in the major leagues. None of us have ever seen him play.
He's also a contact guy though. And a lot of these contact guys that have come over have not been all that risky. That translates. It does. It translates. If you're going to tell me that, he's a big power guy and he's going to get exposed on the high fastball in the major leagues, then I think that's a different story. This guy can, hit the ball behind his back. He's a guy that he's a baseball player.
Sure.
And he knows how to make a ton of contact. And the Yankees so desperately need that. This is a lineup that can be tested against anybody. You bring in a tough lefty, we got it. You bring in a tough righty, we got it. Donovan gives you the flexibility there as well, to pull someone out of that lineup. If Stanton is getting exposed to that high fastball again and again and again, don't play him unless it's a great matchup and you're coming in with against a lefty that he can mash. You can actually play a lot more situational now against who you're playing on the starting as the opponent's starting pitcher. And that was another piece that we just said, we were looking at trading Glaber, because last year I probably would have traded Glaber away to get closer or under 300 million. That would have been my mentality. This year I said, no, let's not do that. We looked at this and we're looking at the value. Like, you need that. And having Donovan play second base every day, because you could get away with that. But then what happens beyond that? You're looking at the depth again being a lot more shallow. And
that's why we signed Candelario, is because the infield depth, even though it looks like it should be plenty of depth, I think it's not plenty of depth.
I agree.
And Glaber is in his last year of arbitration. I don't know what they're going to do with him as far as after the season. I think a lot of it depends on how good of a season he has. But you know me, I wouldn't sign him to a long-term deal. And I think we tried to address with the Candelario and also the Bellinger signing that does address the 2025 infield as well, because like I said, of the versatility to move to first base, and then you still have DJ for a couple more years. Did you guys look at anyone else on the trade market for infield? We looked at Jonathan India for as a trade candidate, because there are reports that the Reds could be moving him because they've got a lot of young infielders, younger than India. He's been a pretty good player. And he could play second. He would just slot into second base after Glaber leaves.
Yeah. No, on the trade market, we were pretty locked in on Donovan to try to get that deal done. If we didn't make that trade with him, because we were like, is this too trade heavy? Like, there's a lot of things that have to go right for this to happen. But I mean, I truly believe that they do have to make he's got to be aggressive in trades. That's the other piece with Soto or with Ohtani. If Ohtani drags out, well, what happened before with the Yankees? They sat on their dick for however long, and I feel like missed out on opportunities. Can't do that. You got to be aggressive from the beginning here and start signing guys. You can't wait around.
Free agency's a week old and literally crickets. Nothing has happened around the league. It's crazy.
Yeah. So he was the guy me more than Ilya. Ilya did not want to do this, but I was toying with the fact of like, hey, you want to really shake some shit up? How about Tim Anderson at second base? He makes a ton of contact coming off the bat.
Well,
You're gonna be
Donaldson's not
motivated.
here anymore, so that opens the door
Yeah,
for Tim.
I don't hate that. Like someone like that, that's a little bit of a fire rod, but
Didn't he have an awful year last
he
year?
did. He had some injuries though, so who knows if those injuries are ones that are going to affect
I
him.
mean, I know he's been a
moving
good
forward.
player for a long time.
Yeah. And he said that he would be open to playing second base. So one area that you guys didn't really do much to is the bullpen. So talk about that.
because we re-signed Wandy Peralta. I just think
Yeah, but who's filling the spots? You have Abreu's not there anymore. So
our bullpen is Holmes, Peralta, Canely, Loizaga, Efros, Hill, Marinaccio, and Hamilton. With Hill, Marinaccio, and Hamilton.
Oh, you have because we traded Hamilton.
Basically, a rotation of guys from the minors. Like I know the bullpen struggled at points last season. I also think that was the fact that the rotation was in shambles, so the bullpen was overworked.
First half of the season, they were the best bullpen in baseball.
Yeah, so I'm very confident in this bullpen without bringing in someone else, especially if you get consistency from Cole, Burns, and you have to let's all talk about the elephant in the room here. Carlos Rodon has to live up to his contract. Like he needs to pitch well, and he needs to be out there pitching 28 to 30 starts. Otherwise, we're going to have more problems in the rotation next year, and he's just going to be a headache. So I'm maybe foolishly banking on Rodon to be a steady force in the rotation. He has to be. And that's another reason why
you kind of have to, you have to go that route with the mindset like that. This
because
guy
you're already spending so much money in the rotation, and we each added a starting pitcher, and I'm glad we each added starting pitching that you can count on. You guys getting Yamamoto, us getting Burns, and not saying, oh, let's take a flyer on Severino or let's take a flyer on Frankie Montas. No, our flyers are Cortez and King, but they're number 4 and 5 flyers. Like we hope Cortez can rebound to what he was in 2022, and we hope Michael King can basically, let's call it, fill the Clark Schmidt role from this past year, but with maybe a little bit more upside. Like, do you think
there's definitely more? No, there's definitely more upside there. There's no doubt.
Yeah. So if King can be a number 5, but really be like a high end number 5, like really more like a number 4, we all know Nestor Cortez is capable of pitching like a number 2 or a number 3. Even if you think it was a little bit fluky, like I'm still comfortable with him if he's healthy being a number 4. And you've got a 3-headed monster in Garrett Cole, Corbin Burns, and Carlos Rodon.
So the one thing that we did in that Donovan trade, we definitely stewed over for a while. We wanted to make sure that it was a realistic trade because he is a controllable young guy. The fact is that St. Louis has a ton of those dudes on their offensive side, and they've made it very clear that they want pitching and need pitching. I think Brito was very good coming up. Like he's got upside there. We were toying around with putting Nestor in that deal as well. But
he surprisingly doesn't have that much value.
He does not have that much value. Well, I think the injury and the way that he came back from the injury is.
I know, but he's
leading into that. He's controlled.
He's controlled, and I feel like controllability is like one of the major factors on that website. No one knows what we're talking about, Baseball Trade Values is the website. Yeah. And contract status is like one of the major things for value.
Yeah. Well, we found an article from the St. Louis Dispatch that they were interested in Marinaccio and Clayton Beater. So we kind of use that as an opportunity, and we upped it a little bit, I think, by including Hamilton as well. And again, Hamilton is a classic case of the Yankees finding a guy that doesn't have a lot of value. They sign for cheap. That's controllable for a long time, and
they'll find another one.
They'll find another one, and I think they have them in the minor leagues as well.
Great. So, they've been able to develop back of the bullpen guys. Awesome.
Yeah.
Every team, whatever every team wants. So I listen, I like your plan because it's similar to our plan. I still think your lineup is a little lacking. I still think beyond the top 3 hitters in that lineup, which are Judge, Soto, and who would you say the number 3 hitter in your lineup is? Is it Glaber
Judge.
Or is it? No, not literally the number 3, meaning like the 3rd best hitter in that lineup.
Hold on, let me tell you the lineup. I'm going to my tabs. I have 8 billion tabs open. DJ, Juan Soto, Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, Torres, Volpe, Wells, Yanuli.
Right. So is Rizzo the 3rd best hitter in that lineup? Is Glaber the 3rd best hitter in that lineup? Like that's what we're talking about, right? So I'm not saying it's a bad lineup. It's certainly an improvement from last year. but I still
you're purely looking at production numbers. You're looking at like power numbers too.
How dare I look at production numbers?
Well, production
from an
numbers,
offensive standpoint.
you got to have people on base to have production numbers also. So,
Yep.
don't let that fool you. And Donovan, while he's not in the very start, he's going to play practically every day. Like he's going to be in there a lot. And so, yeah, it's complimentary is what it is. And I think that and I didn't build this lineup. We didn't build this lineup. Ilya had a lot of influence in this. And Ilya, I want you to give some thoughts here if I missed anything, but, we built this to be sustainable through the regular season, but also into the playoffs. How can you win against good right-handed pitching in the playoffs? How can that happen? And I think we have a very balanced and good lineup with guys that can get on base, spray the ball, and hit you in up and down. If you have Juan Soto and Aaron Judge in your lineup, and you have guys that will get on base beyond that, I'm very happy. I'm very happy, and I think. Yeah. So I don't think it needs Cody Bellinger, to be honest.
I see. I think it did. That's the main reason why we signed Cody Bellinger, is because we were looking at the lineup with Kevin Kiermaier in it, who again is kind of like discount Jung-Hoo Lee.
That's not fair. He's not remotely close to the hitter that Jung-Hoo Lee is. Not even close.
Jung-Hoo Lee might be a league average hitter. He might be a 95 OPS plus hitter for all we know.
He's not going to be.
I hope. I mean, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, and
So
Kevin Kiermaier is 97 years old, so he could fall off the planet.
Which is why I was like, we can't go into next year with still Jason Dominguez being unknown. Could Jason Dominguez come back in July? And that's why this
is Jason Dominguez coming back in. Also, adds like some beef to this. You're looking at like, okay, I got too many good players here, and honestly, I would prefer someone who goes gap to gap than over the fence when we're looking at additions. We have guys that are going to hit the home run, and that you have to rely on hitting the home run in some capacity. You need guys to move this lineup over. You need guys to turn it over. You need that. If you don't do that, if Cody Bellinger falls back into that trap of being a 25 to 30% strikeout guy, you're in the same boat.
Okay. And if Jung-Hoo Lee comes in and hits 270 with absolutely no power, like what does that really do for the lineup?
He's on base and giving opportunities with guys who can hit with power. That's what's happening. He's turning over the lineup. I would much prefer, I hate the strikeout. I hate the strikeout. And I think that this lineup needs anti-strikeout guys. That was the big reason why we went Lee.
Strikeouts were a problem for this offense in 2018, 19, and 20 and 21. Strikeouts were not the problem for this offense last year. It was literally, they didn't have anyone who could hit the ball.
Well, yeah. I mean, you do strike out when you can't hit the ball.
And so with our lineup, I think that just the top 6 are really, really strong. Does it have some risk? Of course. I mean, it's different.
There's a lot of risk
than yours. I think
it's different. It's different risk. You're right.
It's different risk than yours. Ours is more. I think it's got higher risk, higher reward.
It's got more names.
But yours is also like the floor might be a little bit higher, but I think the ceiling is much, much lower.
I need gritty motherfuckers that can come in here and grind and just eat baseballs. I don't need you to hit the ball. Chicks don't dig the long ball anymore. Chicks dig the gap ball. Chicks dig the double. Chicks dig the go oppo when you need it to move a runner. Chicks dig scoring runs.
We'll see what actually happens, but I don't see now taking ourselves out of this and saying it's Steinbrenner and Cashman. I don't see how this team can be projected for anywhere close to 90 wins if the payroll is not $320 million. Because I don't see.
I agree with that.
Unless there's multiple trade rabbits out of Cashman's hat, which is not realistic, I don't see how this team is that much of an improvement without spending a ton of money this offseason.
Goes back to the conversation I had. I've referenced this multiple times with Max Goodman about the state of the Yankees and how they feel behind the scenes. And something that he told me is absolutely just scares the shit out of me is that they are going to have to rely on their young guys, position player guys, to come up and be the people that they need to be on the offensive side. And I just don't believe that. I don't believe that is true. I'm sorry, it could be true. I'm not saying that he's not correct. I hope he's not correct. I hope that he's reading the tea leaves incorrectly with the way that they're thinking, because if they do believe that and they're going to go and rely on Everson Pereira and Oswaldo Peraza to come in and be everyday players and be productive everyday players, we're going to be in the same position.
Yep. You're going to be in a position next year where it's hopefully a top 4 of a lineup of DJ, Judge, Glaber, and Rizzo, but that's not going to be enough offense. That's not enough offense. It's frankly just
Glaber needs to be the 4th best player on the team.
Well, in our lineup, he's the 6th best hitter on the team, and that's where he belongs. Is the 6th best hitter on the team? I think not the 2nd best.
If he's 4th or 5th best hitter on the team, if he's 4th or 5th in that conversation, I think this team is probably in a good position.
Yeah, I think fine, but he certainly can't be the 2nd best hitter on the team.
No, well, and but yeah, by default because of injury as well.
Yeah.
Ilya, Logan, you guys, what say you, Ilya? What did I miss?
I think we covered a lot of it. There was some other stuff we looked into. We looked into a lot of different outfield configurations, but Soto's just a no-brainer. And then I think it was really just if Bellinger goes off and has the same year, he did have a well-rounded year, but I think if you get Bellinger to be,
if he's 80%.
Yeah, but it's a lot of what we have.
That.
It's a lot of this team.
I don't want 80% of that. I don't want 80% of that.
Soto.
He hit 25.
You don't want 80% of a 300 hitter.
Not as the big guy, not as the main guy.
Who can play a good center field and give you insurance at first base.
Because
that's another thing you guys didn't address is the infield after next year, which is a problem.
No, that's bullshit. Brendan Donovan, we actually addressed it way more than you did. Take that back. Brendan Donovan, because Brendan Donovan is a controlled player that can play 2nd or 3rd at a good level. He's a guy that fits very.
And who's going to play first base? Because you're not going to give Rizzo that $20 million option.
No,
we're going to need a body at first base after the season, but you have DJ that can go over there.
I don't need to address next year's first baseman when I have
You can get another first baseman. You can get another first baseman easily. I'd rather have the ability to add what we need at first base after the season than have Candelario stuck on the team.
I don't like Candelario. So.
It's $12 million.
Yeah, but it's a roster spot.
But that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, we're not talking about the money. We're talking about how do you make the team better. Like I don't think he's a starting. He shouldn't be a starter on this team.
No, he's a more or less a platoon player with DJ. But DJ, I hope DJ LeMahieu is the everyday player that he was 3 years ago. But come on, that's not going to happen, guys.
No, I mean he doesn't need to be because.
Well, that's why we're bringing in Lee and Donovan and those contact guys that can produce it. We need more of that on the team. Even if your team hits and everything goes great, the team is going to be stellar. But if it's a little bit under or it's done, you have a lot of redundant types of players.
There's going to be a lot of streaks and potential exposure in the playoffs.
At the end of the day, we kind of prioritized getting the best lefty bats available, and whatever that ended up being was what it ended up being. We saw that as a weakness. I mean, Cashman came out and said that. I mean, that was one of the things that we kind of I don't want to say liked, but it was fine from his press conference. He said he needs 2 outfielders, preferably lefties. We wanted to go get the 2 best outfielders available that way lefties. We didn't, I think sometimes we fall in we gotta dance around it. No, like you guys said, it doesn't matter the money. We're just gonna go out. We're gonna do it. We talked a lot about signing a big pitcher as opposed to going out and getting Burns, whether that be Montgomery or Nola. We talked a lot about, or Yamamoto. And we kind of
Nola's I wouldn't even put Nola in that conversation. He's a different type of pitcher.
Call it spending $25 million on a pitcher. And doesn't matter who it is.
We looked at Nola because we liked his. I specifically liked his. I don't even want to say consistency, but durability. He's made the most start. He's made more starts than Cole over the past 3 to 5 year stretch. But to lock up, even though we don't care about the money per se, to lock up Cole, Rodon, and then say Yamamoto at $25+ million, 3 people in the rotation, is that the best allocation of money? Because there is a limit.
Yeah. And I think with the offense, your team, you tried to get a little cute with the lineup. And I think
this is where we totally disagree. I mean,
we got well-rounded.
Really disagree. Hard.
Yeah,
disagree.
But what have we seen work for playoff teams in recent? The Rangers just won the World Series.
Bro,
and
look at the Diamondbacks.
We've seen the Phillies. Me? That's a fluke. And we saw the Phillies. They go out and they get the best players.
But they have a balanced lineup. They're not all just.
How many times has that gone wrong too? When you go out and like, I understand that the Rangers,
And that's
did
why
it
the Yankees haven't
this
done
year.
it, and that's why Yankees fans have been afraid to just go do it. And then like,
Did it
but
work for the
sometimes it
Rangers
just
last year?
works.
Did it work for the Rangers last year? Answer that.
No, it didn't work for the Rangers
Okay,
last
now,
year.
now how many of
but
these guys do you have that are signed beyond 1 year?
What guys?
Cody
the Rangers
Bellinger.
guys?
You have Cody Bellinger signed because Soto's not. So you're looking at a 1 year opportunity to make sure that all of these new.
The only reason we
high-profile
didn't
players-
extend Soto immediately is because he's gonna hit free agency, and then if he has a good year, you give him the most money. You give him $500 million next year. You'll have the roster flexibility to do that next year because of Rizzo and Glaber's money coming off the books, which is almost $40 million.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but it's a difficult thing to bank on considering he's going to hit free agency and he's a Boris guy.
This is also kind of to what you were saying with our first base situation. Your rotation for the next year now is Cole,
Yeah.
Rodon, Nestor, if whatever he is, King, whatever he is, and that's it.
And then you could sign Corbin Burns if you like what he did, or you can.
I mean, any of
go
us
out
can
and make
sign any
another
free
trade.
agents for next year, but you also
Yeah,
have to
like,
put some
you know,
places and understanding with the way that the Yankees do business as well. Like, I know we were taking that out a little bit, but it is a piece, right? Like, Cashman signs controllable guys too, like when he does these trades. And that's why the Soto, we included Cosgrove in there because at least there's one controllable guy in there coming out of that deal when you're giving up. It's a little bit easier pill to swallow if you have a guy like Cosgrove who's going to be a
You just
contributor
said
for a
what
long-
Cashman would do. This is not what Cashman.
No,
would
I
do.
understand that, but I'm saying like that's the part where I agree with those type of moves. So I'm saying that he would do that. Those are type of moves, but if you're looking at areas where I agree with Cashman and the way he does that, when he identifies some controllable pieces as well, like I think. He
And
does
what
do a
guys
good
have
job.
ever worked
The
out for
bullpen.
him that he gets that are
For the
controllable?
bullpen.
All the for the bullpen. Okay,
So,
great.
but the
Didi,
thing is,
Cosgrove is a bullpen guy. That's what I just said.
Didi,
thing-
you really dropped a Didi on me.
the thing is though, is that an added benefit of doing it this way with Soto and with Burns is that this fixes the can he perform in New York thing. If he can't, there's
Yeah.
no contract.
Okay, Cody.
There's no
Bellinger.
to Cody. I will not lie to you. I'm scared of that same thing.
Yeah, he doesn't like.
we-
Cody
At the end of the day,
I do like Cody Bellinger, but that was our most contentious.
at
point
the end of the day,
because
I
you
couldn't
guys-
see
I
Cody
don't
Bellinger.
see. I didn't see me and you, Scott, see Cody Bellinger in the same light. But at the end of the day, we fell into the best
Yeah.
left-handed outfielder
Like,
available.
let's
Good defender.
stop-
He's 28. Let's stop pretending. I see it as he's a guy that is up and down.
Let's also stop pretending that
you don't
2022 didn't happen because it did.
2022 happened.
No, I
so
know.
did
I'm talking to Andrew.
2020.
I'm
So-
talking to Andrew. Yeah, when you're going back at the injury, and let's also this guy, his swing is long as hell. Like it looks absolutely beautiful on when you're looking at it when he's completely healthy. It's a beautiful swing, Griffey-esque in that sense. It's long, it's majestic. It looks like A-Rod's fly fishing logo. But when it's off a little bit, it's got massive holes, and that's what we saw. The guy strikes out a ton. If he goes to New York and it is getting lucky a little bit more often and has a little bit of a pulled groin muscle, then this guy's not going to hit for a week.
I also think having Soto means you don't have to go get
Agreed.
that high risk, high reward in Bellinger. You already got your big lefty bat. You can take a little
It's
bit.
not
of-
enough. Judging
I
Soto
don't
in
think
this lineup is not
it's
enough.
enough. I don't think it's enough. But I'm saying for that second lefty bat, whether you go Bellinger or Lee, I think you're.
That's a big difference
I
considering
need
we've
different-
never
I need
seen
different
Lee play
guys.
baseball.
I feel like
But
he fell
you
into the same
you
trap of
need the
adding
different
similar
makeup.
dudes.
You need a different. Like if these pitchers get to the Yankees lineup and they're just attacking these guys the same way because they're all the same kind of
Yeah, it's
power
bad.
threat, swing and
That-
miss, or big power threat. Lee and Donovan, all those guys gives you that
but-
different look.
But
Well,
you guys,
yeah,
you
but-
guys are talking about them like it's Gary Sanchez and Luke Voigt, okay?
Right,
Like
right.
those are the
I
same
agree.
hitter. Those are both bad hitters. Cody Bellinger is not a bad hitter. You want to say he's got
Neither is
swings?
Lee.
Sure. You've never seen Lee play baseball.
I have seen Cody Bellinger play in
How many
2022
Cody
and
Bellinger
2021
at-bats
though.
have you
That's-
watched?
What I have seen
Probably
is Cody,
12 because he played a 3-game series against the Yankees last
Well,
year.
there you go. I looked up 10 Lee at bats last night.
At the end of the day, he's not.
and he's
I
in
mean,
the bunting competition. And
but-
what do you think that they're looking at? They're looking at contact and bunting.
Okay, guys, gun to your head. Who's going to have a better season next year, Jung-Hoo Lee or Cody Bellinger in the major leagues?
Okay, first
Lee.
of all, it's totally
You're
it's
crazy.
different. It's different. They're different players. They're different players. Is Cody Bellinger going to hit home runs? More home
Who has a
runs?
higher OPS
Yes.
plus? Who has a higher OPS plus? That takes into account everything.
Yeah.
That I think Cody Bellinger will probably be out for half the season. So Lee.
That wouldn't account
Speaking
for
of
OPS+.
pivoting from their belief system, Cody Bellinger's an injury guy. He's an injury guy, whether you want to see it or not.
I wouldn't call him an injury guy.
He
No,
is.
I mean,
I don't think so.
He is. Straight and when when tweaked, not good.
Well, I
look,
mean, and the
I'm not
Yankees
gonna
are notorious for messing guys up. So
I
if
just
you want
think
to die on that
the
hill,
Yankees
that's a hill
have
to die on.
the
But
Yankees have fallen into the trap, other than Garrett Cole, where
he had one
they
injury
don't-
season.
they don't just
Got it.
do the obvious thing in front of them, which is sign the talent or go get the talent. They try and be cute, and they try and be fancy, and they try and be smarter than everyone else. Sometimes you don't have to be smarter than everyone else. You just have to sign the guy that's the most talent, and that works out.
And I will say this, that just because this guy played at a professional league in a different country doesn't mean that he's not talented. Doesn't mean
Of course not. I'm
We've
not
seen
saying
time
that.
and time again. Guys come over from Korea and play at a very high level, and their game translates. So I can't sit here and say, just because I haven't seen him play in a major league uniform, that he's not going to translate. History tells you different.
I'm not saying that. I'm using that argument because you're sitting here telling me that Cody Bellinger is too risky.
I
and
think
you're
there's
sitting
less
here
risk
saying
with
that
Lee
there's
than
no
there is
risk.
Bellinger. I think there's less risk with
See,
Lee than there is.
I don't
Bellinger.
think. I think there's similar risk, even if it's different risk. It's both. They're both risky. You take a risk when you're signing a guy from another country in another league, just like you're taking a risk with a guy with Bellinger
take
that has
calculated
had
risks.
ups and downs in his
You
career.
can take calculated risk with the type of play, the game play, and if it will translate. That is baseball scouting. I cannot take.
And I'm taking a calculated
But he's
risk
gonna
on a
stay
guy
healthy.
that's a former MVP
That's gonna stay
and
healthy.
had a really, really good season last year.
Yeah, and he's going to.
And
stay
he's
healthy.
28 years old, entering his prime,
Yep.
or in the middle of
So-
his prime.
So Lee has a career 898 OPS in 7 seasons.
In-
25 years old.
In a league
He's
that,
25.
if you read anything about, is basically the equivalent of Major League Baseball AAA. That's what the Korean League is. It's AAA.
Again, you could put a laundry list of guys that have come over here and have translated very well, and especially contact guys. Contact translates. I don't care where you're playing. Contact translates. It does.
Yeah.
Bat to ball skills translate, and that's what he.
I
has.
agree. I agree with that, and that's why strikeout pitchers in Japan tend to come over and strike out guys in the major leagues as well. And contact pitchers in Japan come over and they get shelled. They have a 6 ERA. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. So you're definitely taking calculated risks, but at the same time, like I see a baseball player, I don't give a shit where he plays. I want that baseball player, and that's what I believe he is. I believe he's got the pedigree too. His dad was pretty.
But so
damn good
you're
also.
signing an outfielder, a center fielder for I know it's not massive money, but it's a long-term contract.
Yeah.
Ideally, you would want to sign Soto after the season ends. So then Jason Dominguez, you would basically have Lee as the fourth outfielder.
Yeah, at that money, that's a Hicks contract. Like he's.
It's not terrible. I'm just.
And with the way
We
that the
also
roster is,
figure it
again,
out.
like you cannot count on Stanton being in the DH spot. So a lot of this makeup was basically like Stanton doesn't exist, even though he does, and he's hard to miss.
Yeah.
He doesn't exist. How do you build this team with Stanton not existing? And signing a guy that 5 years has the ability to play multiple positions and fits the lineup really nicely. Like you can go out and get power guys in free agency. You can do that. It's not easy to find these guys that will complement the power guys that you need.
We're trying to maximize the whatever window is left, because we all agree the window is 2 or 3 more years maximum.
We've said
basically.
that for like 6 years, but yes.
Yeah, but it's basically, if you're going to win a championship with Judge and Cole still at their peaks, it's 2 to 3 years. So how do you maximize the next 2 to 3 years is basically what we were trying to also do.
Bring Mike Harkey into the dugout.
That's the real move. You guys should.
Who's your bench coach? Yeah, you didn't even address that. Who's your bench coach?
No, we didn't address that because frankly, it doesn't really matter much.
You got to have someone babysitting Aaron Boone. What are you talking about? Of course you do.
No, you gotta have a good roster. You gotta have talent, and then hopefully there's too much talent on the team to fuck it up.
You're giving him too much credit. Mike Harkey will keep him in line.
We didn't put thought into the bench coach, but
Well,
I like the Harkey move, but also
So just give me the endorsement. Mike Harkey for a bench coach.
Sure.
Who says no?
With me? I don't know.
I don't think anybody.
Maybe he doesn't want the job. Maybe he's cool chilling in the bullpen.
Yeah, I think he wants the job. I think anybody would.
Who wants to sit next to Aaron Boone every game for 6 straight months. Be in the bullpen having some fun with some guys.
Yeah.
All right, that is going to wrap it up. Let us know which plan you like. Maybe a combination of the two, even though they're very, very similar. Be curious to see what the Yankees do. Maybe we'll get some moves before Thanksgiving or around the winter, or the winter meetings coming up in a couple weeks. It's been crickets on the baseball free agent front because that's baseball for you, Susan. Anything else you want to touch on, Scott?
Yeah, and this might extend our show a couple more minutes here, but what do you actually believe that the Yankees will do?
I don't think they're going to trade for Soto, and I don't think they're going to sign Ohtani. I think they're probably going.
Do you think they'll sign Yamamoto? Like, do you think they're going to make a major acquisition in some capacity?
I think there will be one major acquisition, and it will either be Yamamoto or Bellinger.
Yeah. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if Bellinger is on this team in 2 weeks. Not at all. Would not surprise me. And look, it's risky as hell. I think it's risky as hell, but I think at this point you do need to make moves. So if they do that, it wouldn't surprise me.
Honestly, maybe I'm overselling this, but if Bellinger could not play first base, I would not have been as sold on him. But I think it's just the versatility he provides you for this coming season because Dominguez is injured, and then next year because Rizzo is going to be off the books. I think that's really nice to have. And you don't have to think about it. You've got a good bat in center field or at first base.
Yeah. I just have a hard time looking into the future with him, even though you have to sign him for, and again, like the fact that I saw 10 years written in a few.
Well,
different
no,
places,
I wouldn't sign him for more than 7 years.
I think it might take more than that.
Well, then I have to pivot and we have to figure something else out. But I think 7 years is the maximum I would go for Bellinger. And yeah.
Okay. Cool. No, that's all I got. Let's see what happens.
Okay, so we'll record again before Thanksgiving next week. We're doing Wednesdays in the off season if you guys hadn't caught on to that yet after a couple of weeks. So Wednesdays is what we'll do until the spring training rolls back around, and we'll do a couple episodes a week starting then. Thank you guys so much for listening, and talk to you soon.